Hi everyone, in today's video we will know the explanation of microservice code. Here we can import this code in two ways. The first one is open your GitHub account and open your microservice repository GTS degree service. This is my microservice repository. The first way is go to code and copy this link and go to your Visual Studio. In the Visual Studio, go to Explorer and open the clone repository. Here we can paste the link, and here we can select the downloaded folder GTS degree service main. This is the folder. Here we can select a repository destination. This is the one way to open your microservice code. The another way is go to your GitHub account. Here we can download the zip file. After downloading, we need to extract this zip file and go to this folder. This is the folder I am extracted. Here we can, using the command prompt, can be imported the microservice code. There are two ways. Here we can see the explanation. This is my microservice repository and these all are the components of my microservice repository. The first is API design and DB design, DB script and GTS degree services, Postman collection, source. The first API design. The API design contains the Excel sheet. The API design helps to understand the purpose and identity the resources you want to expose, and it also helps to determine the operation. The operations include update, delete, receive, create. It's like a blueprint. I will show the Excel sheet. This is my API design. So here we can see it's like a blueprint. Here we can understand the purpose of API. And this is the operation we need to determine. Like this JSON, we need the responses. This is the use of API design. And the next one is DB design. DB design is a database design. This also helps to understand the application and requirements, and it helps to identify the data, what will be stored and how it will be used. Like this, here we can see the Excel sheet of DB design. Yeah. This is the data. The next is DB script. DB script contains the database tables. These database tables helps to create a tables in the MySQL. It helps to creating database scripts. It involves writing the SQL commands. Here we can see this is the SQL commands to set up the database schema, and it includes tables, relationships, etc. Here we can execute these scripts in any MySQL channels like MySQL data workbench, PHP myadmin. Like this we can execute this script. The next is Postman collection. Postman collection is it's not run in this file, but it helps to import these folders. The next one is source. Source contains assembly, main, test. In the assembly folder, there is a bin.xml. Bin.xml is like a directory and it's not a standard file. It referred to binary configuration files. And also XML file is used to manage the configuration. It helps to managing the configuration. Then main. The main folder contains the Java. The Java contains subfolders like catch, config, controller, entity, exceptions, and more on. In the catch, there is a catch manager.java. This code, first we need to import the package. After package declaration, we need to import the Spring Framework annotations and repositories. Here we use the repository annotations. Repository annotation helps to automatically detected and managed the springs, and the mainly catch manager helps to manage user tokens. Here we can see this is the user tokens, and it also helps to using the Redis as a catch a solution. Here we can see Redis template, and in this we use the key as a user token. This key helps to store the Redis, and also here we use the two parameters. One is long user ID and another one is string token. User ID in the form of long parameter and token is in the form of string. And then here we use the here we get the user ID and password as a successfully it returns to, otherwise it's an error, it throws in the exception. And also here we use the get user, means it retrieves the user in the format of long parameter, and also it helps to delete the user. The cache helps to managing the user tokens. The next one is configuration. The config, it's called configuration. In the configuration there is a cos-config.java and another one is local config.java. Here also first we need to declare the package, then import the annotation configurations, the frameworks we need to import. And first we know what is COS. What is the full form of COS? COS is a cross origin resource sharing. COS is like a HTTP based protocols. It allows servers to indicate the origins. It's like a HTTP based protocols. Here we use the annotation as configuration and enable WebMVC. Configuration helps to indicate the class containing the Spring, and enable WebMVC allows the customize. It helps to customize the configuration. Here in the public class we need to extend the web configuration support. It provides the configuration methods for setting the MVC features, and also here we use the mapping methods and allowed the methods like it helps to put, add, delete, get. It helps to operation CRUD operation, and also it's setting the maximum age as at 21,600 seconds. So totally it helps to configuring the mapping and determine how server respond to the different origins. Here we can see the different operations and mapping like that. Similar to next one is local configuration. So mainly local configuration is responsible for setting up a connection to Redis database. It's mainly used the JDs. So it helps for connecting factory and Redis template. Here we can use the implements the web configure. So web configure implement helps to indicate the class that provide the configuration in a Spring MVC, and here we use the method. One is creating Redis connection. Here we can see creating the Redis connection, and another one is creating configuration Redis server details. One is Redis connection and another one is Redis server details. This is the server details. So it mainly helps to set the host name, port, password like this. It helps to setting the mapping, hash mapping. Here we can set our host name, port number and password, and how to connect the factory, JDis connection factory to new connection factory using Redis standard. And also here we use the key serializer and hash key serializer. So serializer is a template that configured with serialization, and string red serializer helps to serializing key and hash key as a string. And also we use the set enable transaction support and after property list. So set enable transaction support helps to step operation to be execute the operations. So after executing operations, it set the properties, so fully configured. So before it used, we can be fully configured. The next one is controller. The controller is a degree controller.java. It contains the details of degree. It's provide a Spring REST controller, and it helps to manage the operation related to degree in this application. Here also we need to declare the package and imports the Spring framework and Java and degree entities like that. Here we use the request controller and request mapping annotations. Request controller helps to handle the requests at the endpoint, and we use the auto void annotations. It helps to generate the ID and get the degree count. In this method helps to validate the degree names and assign a unique ID to each new degree like that. It helps to in the degree name, first it's validate the name of the degrees, and the next it helps to set the details of the degree, and it also assign a unique ID, set the degree ID. So it helps to assign unique ID to each new degree, and it creates the degree, and also finally it calls to save the degree. And here we can see it throw any errors. It throw on the exception degree not found exception. Here it's throw record not found, and also it returns the response entity. So response entity helps to return the responses in the form of HTTP status, like HTTP status code, like it throw it's an forbidden error, it throws the 403 error, and it's an error, it's like 404 error, like it's throw an error in the HTTP status code. And it provides the flexibility in the form of HTTP response. It provided the response in the form of in the HTTP. So it's totally a mapping. The next is entity. The entity is a refers the object. So basically we call entity helps to refers the object. Here one is a degree entity.java, another one is a user entity.java. First we know degree entity.java. Here first thing we need to declare the package and import the Java persistence, and I already told that entity helps to the annotation entity. It helps to map to a database table. It's a mapping. It's like setter and getters. Here we can see here set the degree ID, getter the degree ID. It's basically a mapping a database and setter and getter method. In this degree entity helps to make the class in the form of JPA, Java Persistent API application. It represents a degree in the form of database, and getter and setter method helps to return corresponding field values, and setter helps to set the values in the covering field. Here we use the constructor. Constructor is helps to creating the new instance. So here we can see getter method. So get the degree ID and set degree ID, getting the degree name, setting the degree name, like that we use. And also boolean. Boolean is in the form of true or false. It returns the output in the form of true or false. Here overriding the string, here we use the toString. ToString method helps to return the string that includes the values and all fields. It return in the form of values and all fields. And also ToString helps useful for debugging and logging. This is all about degree entity, and the next one is user entity. So user entity is also same, it's in the mapping, getter and setter method. Here we use also user entity represents the user tokens. Here we can see user token entity is in the user token in the Java Spring application. Here also we use the JPA, Java persistence application. So mainly in the entity we use the JPA. The next is exception. So exception, it contains the many exception contains exception handling. So we all know exception handling, it contains throws, finally, try, catch. It's called exception handling. The exception is any error occurs in the Java code, it throw an error in the form of exception. There are multiple exception like application, custom exception, it's not found exception, degree not found exception, degree service exception, duplication exception, like that. So one by one we will know. First one is application exception. First is declare the package, and this application exception extends the runtime exception. So its meaning is it's unchecked the exception, and also it's helps to simplifying the error handling. And here we use the serial version UID in the parameter long. Serial version UID means it's serializing the ID in a unique queue identifier. So every students contain the ID uniquely, means it's a different ID. And also here we use the string message. Here we can see string message as a parameter. It represents the error message for exception, and also it calls the constructor of superclass. Here we can see super message is a constructor of super is a constructor. It calls the messages. And the next one is custom exception. So custom exception also helps to handle the exception in Spring application. Here we use the controller advice annotation. It helps to handle the exception in centralized manner. Here we can response the entities in the form of string, and application exceptions in the form of the HTTP status like bad request, not found, and like forbidden error, like this, and returns in the form of HTTP status. The next one is degree exception. Degree exception also handle the exception in the form of HTTP messages. It's totally related in the HTTP messages. Here we extend the response entity exception handler. It provides the default and link messages, HTTP responses. So defaultly it's handling HTTP messages. Here we use the parameters. Here this override and protected the response entity. Here we use the parameter as a HTTP message not readable exception, and HTTP header, HTTP status, and web request. So HTTP message not readable exception is the instance exception, and a HTTP header in the form of original request, and status code for the responses, and web request is a current request is web pages. Like this you can so degree exception is related to HTTP messages. And the next one is degree not found. So when degree resources cannot be found in this application, it throw an the error degree not found by extending the runtime exception. So it indicates exception is unchecked. Here also we use the serial version UID in the parameter long, and also it calls the string messages and calls the constructor called super in while passing the messages, like that. Next, degree services exception. And degree services exception also we use the unique serialization ID during serialization and deserialization. Here also we call the constructor as a super. the same as it is duplication exception message. Here we also call constructor and use the serialization like this. And the next one is auth, means authentication successfully. So authentication means it redirects the page after the authenticated. In this authentication we need to implements the requests and responses. For it requests the responses, and also the authentication it's failed, it throw and the exception in the form of IO exceptions, servlet exceptions. So here if we use the component annotations, so it indicates the class is this annotation helps to automatically detected and registered by the Spring context. And here we can see it implements the authentication success handler. This implementation provides the custom logic that run after successfully authentication. For example, we need to open one of the websites or any other application. It asks our username and password, so it enters successfully, it shows and it's authenticated successfully. For example, we need to other link to mobile number, like that that time it shows authenticated successfully. So it's a authentication method. Next one is repository. Repository is a interface. So basically repository is called as a interface. Here degree repository and user token repository. The first one is degree repository. So repository is repositories interface. It's like an queries, we can write the queries, SQL queries, and this annotation marks the, this repository annotation marks the interface as a Spring repository. So repository interface is a Spring repository. Here we can write the query and SQL commands, and we can call here different SQL queries. The one is a count degree. So here we can see query select the maximum degree ID from GTS degree, like this. And count degree means it retrieves the degree and it helps to find, means fetches the degree using the ID of the degree, and also it helps to returns the degree by using their name. Here we can see, here we use the param. So param is a map that methods, parameter methods. It helps to parameter and find the list degree by ID, and it helps to retrieve, fetches, return and count, like that. So totally repository helps to write the SQL queries in the form of interfaces. Next one is user token repository. So user token repository also helps to handles the CRUD operations. Here we handle CRUD operations, and also you can see here we use the transactional and modifying annotations. So transactional helps to operation should be executed within the transaction, and modifying helps to query will be modified the databases, and we writing the code we can modify. Here we can see, so one is delete by user ID. In the same query we can update the token, so we can be modified using the databases. Next one is the next one is security. The security, basically security is a username and password. We can open our applications, or we can open our mobile screen lock or laptop lock. It has the password. So basically providing the passwords are called as a security. There is a different securities here. One is authorization, another one is user principal, and another one is web security. The first one we will see authorization filter.java. So authorization filter, first we need to declare the package and imports the Java servlet and Spring framework, degree exception, like that. Here we extends the request filter, and then using the auto wide annotation, here we use the JWT util. So JWT means it's a JSON web tokens. It managing the JWT operation, and helps to extracting the user details and validating tokens. For example, we can log in our email ID in another laptop, like that. It asking the username, password. So when we enter, it's all are correct, it's validating, otherwise it's an error, like that. User token let's say here we can filter the internals like HTTP request responses and filters the data, otherwise we can change our password like this. Here also we use the authorization filters, header, and using the extract the user details by in the login page and use the toString method, like that. It's all the details are correct, so it would be return true or otherwise throw and the exception in a JSON exception. And using the user principal helps to initializing the field, like that. Here we can see, here validate the tokens, all the details are correct, validate the token, and using the username, password authentications, web authentication details, like that. So authorization filter is the authentication, we use the username, password, and validating the details. The next one is same as the security, user principal.java. We declare the package declaration and import the Java and Spring framework, and implements the user details. So user detail means username, password, and other details, date of birth, like that. Here we use the serial version UID, it a unique serialization, GTS user ID, and extends the granted authorities, get the details, and it asks the permission, and it's in the form of boolean, means it's give the return as a true or false in the form of boolean, and it helps to creating the new instance. Next one is web security. So web security means setting up the security. Yes, the same as authentication, extends the web security configuration, and also we use authentication successful handler and configure the HTTP security through an exception. So in the HTTP security we use the CORS, CSRF, disable authorize request, and any request authentication. So CORS, I have already told that CORS is a cross origin resource sharing. It helps in the manage of HTTP status, and CSRF is a stateless API. It helps to managing the security token, and authorization request helps to enter the details of authorization and authenticated. So session management is a store the any session helps to store the session data, and here we can use the authentication manager bean it's overridden the bean. So it bean annotation can be overridden using the authentication manager bean. It's thrown the exception and calls the constructor as a super class. So this is all about security, means setting up the security to the code. And the next one is services. In the services, one is the IMPL impl. We use the degree service impl and degree service.java. So degree service impl, first we can see degree service impl means first declare the package. Every code first we need to declare the package, then import the necessary files and use the annotations. So here we use the service annotation. Service annotation helps to eligible component can be scanning and dependency injections, and also it helps, this degree service impl helps to managing operation related to the degree and interacts using the degree repositories. It contains the degree informations. Here we can see, here we can use the get degree count, and returns the number of degrees, and we use the JResponse model. This model indicates the success or failure of the applications. in the status code, and here we create a degree and it helps to instance the new instance of the degree, and here we can get the output in the set success or set the message. It can be response in the form of HTTP, like in the form of boolean true or false, or in the form of the messages like it can be successfully added, or it's false, or it should be failed, and in the form of HTTP status code, like in the status code 201, it's successful, it show 201, it should be an error, it shows the 404. Like this we can get the output. And also here we get the all degree details, and helps to fetch the data and return the degree details, and we can helps to check that it's an active degree or inactive degree. Can be helps to update the degrees like this. So next is a degree service. So degree service also is a interface. Degree services is implemented the class providing the functionality. So using the functionality it can be described the classes like that. This is the get all degree means this is the class, it's provide the function, it provide this functionality. Get all degree is a functionality, it can be provided, and it helps to updated, active, inactive like this. So it's implemented by any class provided by the functionality. It's a functionality description. The next one is util. Util contains the JSON response model and JWT util and response util and GTS degree services stream lambda. The first one is JSON response modeler.java. So here also first we declare the package. It's also in the message in the form of string like success message or status code. It helps to get and set the messages. Totally it helps to getting the messages and set the messages. So it's in the form of boolean or in the message form or all the status code. Next one is JWT util.java. JWT util, and here we use the service annotation and use the secret key. So it helps to validating, the secret key helps to validating and security purpose. And here we extract the details using the token as a string, and extract the expirations. So using the token we can extract our details, extract the claims, extract the expirations. If the token ID is expired, it throw an the error. So here we can finally we can implement it using the user values 1 and 2. We can extract our details. So it's a duplication, it throw an the error. See, it's a duplication exception. The next one is response util.java. So it's also like a HTTP message in the form of JSON web tokens is the Spring application. It helps to extracting the tokens and validating the tokens and managing the JWT operations. Next one is GTS degree services. So GTS degree services, first is declare the package and import the files and use the Spring Boot application as a annotation. It helps to auto configuration. Spring Boot application helps to enables the auto configuration, and we use the cache, static cache as it helps to store the object in a key value pace. Here we use the hash map cache builder. So and also use the expire after write and limit. It can be set the create and expiring. So when we creating and when we expire, the data can be set using the cache. And also it helps to manage the memory and ensure the data store. So the creating and expiring it totally helps to managing the memory and the store the data. The next one is stream lambda handler. The stream lambda handler helps to allow the Spring Boot application. It allows the, here we can see, it allows the Spring Boot application to handle the request. So the request coming from the API gateways or AWS services. So here we can see AWS proxy requests responses like that. So it's handle the requests that's coming from AWS services or API gateways. Here we can see it implements the request stream handler. This is the interface handling the request in Lambda. Lambda request can be handled by request stream handler. Here here also we can use Lambda container and container set the initialization timeout when will be set and auto handled, and the get the AWS proxy handler, and it can be true, it get an output written in the true, and otherwise it throw in the exception like that. The next one is resources. The resources contain the application properties and application y.ml. In the application property is contains the database details in this data source URL, database username, password. It helps to test the connection in MySQL Workbench and say server port number and the Hibernate database platforms. It contains the details of the databases and helps to test the connection in the databases. Next one is test GTS degree service application test. It helps to, here we can use the class as a GTS degree services, and it's using the annotation as a test. It doesn't contain any, and we use the target. The target contains the classes and generation, and also we need to run this project. We need to install the Maven. This is the Mavens. And also we use the pom.xml. So pom is a project object model. It contains the project information about this my project. So it contains the information of project and configures the details used by Maven. So using the Maven, it configure the details. Here we can see group ID and version and packaging. Here we use the jar files, and my microservice repository name is GTS degree services. So it contain all the information of the project and the details configure the details used by Maven. And here we can use the key functions as a project metadata, dependencies. Here we can see project dependencies and build configuration, build the configurations and repository and plugins, profiles, properties, all are contained in the, here we can see plugins, configurations, profiles, project. So pom.xml helps to contain the information about project and configure details. So readme.md, here we can write the details. This is my microservice repository name. So this is all about the explanation of microservice repository. Thank you.